Everyone saw a broken stone. Nobody wanted it. 2 sculptors tried. And failed. For 40 years. It just stood there. Until one young artist said, "I will take it." This story does not start with Michelangelo. It starts with a stone. A huge block of white marble. The most beautiful marble in the world. From a small mountain town in Italy called Carrara, where the stone is so white and so pure that it almost glows in the sun. This block arrived in Florence in 1464. And from the very beginning, it caused problems. It was tall. Nearly 6 meters. That is taller than most rooms you have ever been in. Taller than 2 grown men standing on each other's shoulders. But it was also damaged. The shape was awkward. Too narrow in some places. Too rough in others. Someone had already started cutting it, and then stopped. Left it. Half started and worse than before. The stone was not easy. It was not clean. It was not simple. It was a problem. And the first man who tried to solve that problem was a sculptor named Agostino di Duccio. He had a good name. He had experience. He looked at the stone and said yes. He started working. He carved the beginning of legs. The rough shape of a lower body. And then he stopped. Nobody knows exactly why. Maybe he cut too deep in the wrong place. Maybe he stood back one day, looked at the damage, and felt something break inside him. He put down his tools. He walked away. The organization responsible for the cathedral found another sculptor. His name was Antonio Rossellino. Rossellino came. He looked at the stone carefully. He studied the cuts, the narrow parts, the damage. He shook his head. Too damaged, he said. Nothing good can come from this. And he left too. So the stone stayed. Just sitting there. In an open courtyard in Florence. Rain falling on it in winter. Sun burning it in summer. Year after year. Decade after decade. People walked past it every day. Sometimes they looked at it. Sometimes they shook their heads. They started calling it
Il gigante.
The giant. Not with respect. More with something like pity. This big, expensive, beautiful stone that nobody could use. That defeated every sculptor who came close. 40 years passed. 40 years. And inside that stone, nobody knew it yet, something was waiting. The young man who said yes. In the summer of 1501, Florence decided to try again. They called a meeting. They made a list of the best sculptors in Italy. They argued about names. They looked at past work. And one name kept coming back. Michelangelo Buonarroti. He was 26 years old. Not the most famous. Not the oldest. Not the safest choice. But 2 years earlier he had done something that people could not stop talking about. He had carved the Pietà. Imagine this. Mary, the mother of Jesus, holding her son after his death. Her face is young and calm. Her hands hold him with such tenderness that people who saw the finished marble could not believe it was stone. Some people said it must be the work of an older, more experienced master. Michelangelo was 23 when he made it. So when his name came up for the giant, people listened. He came to look at the stone. He walked around it slowly. He said nothing for a long time. He touched the surface. He looked at the damage. He looked at the narrow sections, the rough cuts, the 40 years of weather. He walked around it again. Other people saw a ruined stone that had already beaten 2 good sculptors. Michelangelo saw something completely different. He later said something that became one of the most famous things any artist ever said. The sculpture is already inside the stone. I just remove everything that is not the sculpture. He saw David in there. Already complete. Already alive. Just waiting for the right person to find him. He said yes. He signed the contract in August 1501. And on the 13th of September, in the early morning, he picked up his chisel, raised it to the stone, and made the first cut. 2 years in a cloud of dust. What happened in those next 2 years is hard to imagine. Michelangelo worked alone. He did not want assistance. He did not want people watching or giving opinions. He sent people away. He closed himself off completely. Just him. And the stone. He worked with chisels of many sizes. Heavy tools for the rough work. Smaller tools as the figure started to appear. The finest tools at the end, for the skin, the hair, the tiny veins on the back of the hands. Marble dust was everywhere. In his hair. On his face. In his clothes. In his lungs. The sound of metal on stone filled the air from morning until night. Sometimes through the night too, with torches for light. He forgot to eat. He sometimes slept in his clothes. He worked through exhaustion and pain. He was completely obsessed. Not in a loud way. In a quiet, total way. Florence, other people, food, sleep, all of it disappeared. There was only the stone. And what was inside it. But this obsession was not just passion. It was backed by years of serious preparation. Michelangelo had spent years studying the human body in a way almost no other artist had done. He got permission from a hospital to study bodies of people who had died. He studied muscles, bones, joints. How the body was built from the inside. How it moved. How it looked under different conditions. He understood the human body better than most doctors of his time. And all of that knowledge was now in his hands. In every cut he made. Here is something important to understand. He could not add marble back once he removed it. Every single cut was permanent. If he went too deep, that was it. No fixing it. No going back. And remember, the stone was already damaged. Already narrow in the wrong places. Already difficult. One wrong cut. One crack in the wrong place. 2 years of work gone. The whole stone gone. Everything gone. He knew this every single day. And he kept going anyway. Not after. Before. Here is where Michelangelo made a decision that changed everything. Every artist before him who had shown David, and many had, showed him the same way. After the victory. David standing with the head of Goliath in his hand. David as the winner. The hero. The proof of what can happen when a small person faces a giant and does not give up. That was the tradition. That was what people expected. Michelangelo did something completely different. He chose the moment before the fight. The seconds before David picks up his stone. Before anyone throws anything. Before anyone knows how this will end. And this single decision is maybe the most brilliant thing about the whole sculpture. Because in this moment, everything is still open. David has not won yet. He is looking at Goliath. He is seeing the size of him. The weight of him. The danger of him. And he is not running. He is standing there. Calm. Focused. Not afraid. That is the moment frozen in 5 tons of marble. Not victory. Not celebration. Not the end of the story. The decision. The moment we all know. When something frightening is right in front of us and we have to choose, do we run, or do we stay? David stays. The hidden psychology. Now look closer. Because Michelangelo put things in this sculpture that most people walk past without noticing. But when you see them, you cannot unsee them. Look at the eyes first. They are not looking at you. They are looking to the side. Into the distance. At something you cannot see. But you can feel what it is. You can feel the weight of what he is looking at. Focused. Locked. Not blinking. Now look at the hands. The left hand holds the sling. It is relatively relaxed. The fingers are loose. This hand knows what it is doing. It has practiced this 1,000 times in the fields. The right hand is different. The fingers are slightly bent. The knuckles are more defined. There is tension in it. This hand is ready. Waiting. Now look at the body. From a distance it looks still. Almost relaxed. Standing quietly. But look at the muscles. There is tension under the skin. The stomach is tight. The weight is on the right leg in a way that means he can move fast, very fast, the moment he decides to. He looks calm on the outside. But every part of him is ready to go. This is not just a beautiful body carved in marble. This is a portrait of a human being in the most important moment of their life. Michelangelo understood something deep. Real courage does not look like screaming. It does not look like aggression or drama. Real courage looks like this. Quiet. Still. Eyes open. Completely present. The size and the secret. David is big. When people walk into the room where he stands today, the first thing they feel is surprise. He is much bigger than they expected. Over 5 meters tall. On his pedestal he towers above you. You have to tilt your head back just to see his face. But here is something interesting that most people never know. The proportions are not perfectly natural. The hands are slightly too large for the body. The head is slightly too big. If you measured everything with perfect mathematical accuracy, it would not match a real human body exactly. This was not a mistake. Michelangelo did it on purpose. He knew exactly where David was going to stand. High up. On a tall pedestal. With people looking up at him from the ground below. He understood how the eye works when you look up from a distance. He knew that from that angle, natural proportions would look wrong. The hands would seem too small. The head would disappear. The details of the face would be lost. So he made adjustments. He calculated what people would actually see from below. And he changed the proportions so that from the ground, from where real people would really stand, everything would look exactly right. He was not just carving a body. He was designing an experience. The nose. When David was almost finished, an important man came to see it. His name was Piero Soderini. The most powerful man in Florence. The man who controlled money, decisions, and the future of artists who wanted to work in the city. Soderini walked into the courtyard. He looked up at David. He was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. He said the nose was too big. Stop for a moment and think about this. Michelangelo had spent nearly 2 years on this sculpture. He had studied anatomy for years before that. He understood the human face better than almost anyone alive. Every proportion, every measurement, every decision had been made deliberately. The nose was not too big. But Soderini was the most powerful man in Florence. You did not tell Soderini he was wrong. You did not explain to him why his opinion was incorrect. Not if you wanted to keep working. Not if you wanted to keep eating. So Michelangelo did something very clever. He reached down to the floor. The ground around the statue was covered in marble dust and small chips from 2 years of work. He quietly picked up a small handful. He held it in his left hand, out of Soderini's sight. He picked up a chisel in his right hand. He climbed the scaffolding up to the face of the statue. He held the chisel near the nose. He made small movements. Careful sounds. The look and sound of a craftsman making an adjustment. And as he worked, he let the marble dust fall slowly from his left hand. Grain by grain. Down through the air. Visible to Soderini standing far below. But he did not touch the nose. Not one real cut. Not one actual change. He came back down. He looked at Soderini calmly. He said, "How is it now?" Soderini looked up at the statue. He studied it carefully. He nodded slowly. He said, "Much better. Now you have really given it life." Michelangelo said nothing. He accepted the words quietly. He did not smile. He did not look pleased with himself. He just nodded. And walked away. His masterpiece exactly as he had always intended it to be. This is one of the smartest things Michelangelo ever did. And it had nothing to do with a chisel. He understood people. He understood power. He understood that sometimes the wisest move is to let someone feel they have won, while you quietly keep everything exactly as you wanted. He protected his work. And he protected Soderini's pride. At the same time. With a handful of dust and a chisel he never actually used. Where do you put a giant? When David was finished in 1504, a new problem appeared. Where do you put him? This sounds like a simple question. It was not simple at all. The city formed a special committee. Important people. Respected people. Artists and officials and thinkers. Leonardo da Vinci was on this committee. Let that land for a moment. Leonardo da Vinci. sitting in a room, discussing where to place the work of a 29-year-old sculptor. The two men did not like each other. Their relationship was cold. There were public insults between them. Real tension. But Leonardo came to that committee. He sat in that room. He looked at David. And he said very little. Because Leonardo, whatever his feelings about Michelangelo the person, was too honest with himself to pretend that what he was looking at was anything less than extraordinary. The committee made their decision. David would stand in the Piazza della Signoria, the main political square of Florence, right in front of the seat of government. This was not just an artistic choice. It was a statement. Florence was a small city. Around her were bigger and more powerful enemies. People who wanted to control her. To tell her what to do. Placing David there, young, unafraid, looking out toward his enemy, was Florence saying something very clear to the world. We see you. We are not afraid. We are not running. 4 days through the city. Moving David through the streets of Florence took 4 days. Workers built a special wooden frame around him. They suspended him inside so that the shocks of the road would not crack the marble. They put the whole construction on wooden wheels and logs underneath. 40 men to push and pull. Slowly. Through narrow streets. Over uneven ground. Past buildings that seemed too close on both sides. And on the very first night, someone threw stones at him in the darkness. Nobody knows exactly who. Political enemies maybe. Jealous people. People who hated what David represented. Guards stood around him all night with torches and weapons. He arrived safely. He was lifted onto his pedestal in the Piazza della Signoria. And Florence looked up at him for the first time in his proper place. People stopped walking. They stood there. Looking up. Feeling something they could not name. Some stayed for a very long time without moving. Some came back the next day. And the day after that. He was attacked. History was not always kind to David. In 1527, during a political riot in the city, someone threw a heavy bench from a window of the building next to him. It hit his left arm. The arm broke into 3 pieces and fell to the ground. For years, the broken pieces just lay there. Nobody collected them. Finally they were found. The arm was repaired and put back. Then in 1991, a man walked into the museum where David now lives. He was carrying a hammer. He attacked the sculpture. He damaged a toe before guards stopped him. Why do people attack beautiful things? That is a question for another day. David was repaired. He is still there. Some damage stays. Some marks remain. But he is still standing. Why he still stops people. In 1873, after nearly 400 years standing outside in the weather, David was moved inside. Into the Galleria dell'Accademia in Florence. A large room with a high ceiling was built specifically for him. Light comes in from above through special windows. A copy stands in the Piazza della Signoria today. A very good copy. But just a copy. More than 1 million people visit the real David every year. They walk down a long corridor toward him. On the sides of the corridor are other sculptures by Michelangelo, Unfinished figures half emerged from their blocks of stone, still trapped inside. As if he ran out of time before he could free them. And then at the end of the corridor, David. Every single time, people are surprised by the size. And then they get closer. And the details start to arrive. The veins on the backs of the hands. Each individual curl of hair. The slight tension in the stomach muscles. The weight of the body on that right leg. The jaw, set and strong. And the eyes. Those eyes looking at something you cannot see. But you can feel it. That same thing David felt 500 years ago. Something large in front of him. Something frightening. Something most people would turn and run from. And this young man is not running. He is standing there. Calm. Ready. Already decided. That feeling does not belong to the Renaissance. It does not belong to Florence or the Bible or the 15th century. That feeling belongs to every human being who has ever stood in front of something difficult and had to choose what to do. That is why people cry in front of a block of marble. That is why 1 million people a year walk down that corridor. That is why, 500 years later, David is still the most famous sculpture in the world. The last thought. Everyone saw a broken stone. 2 sculptors tried and walked away. A city left it outside for 40 years. Experts looked at it and said, nothing good can come from this. One young man looked at the same stone. And saw David. Not the damage. Not the problems. Not the 40 years of rain. He saw what was possible. He picked up his chisel. He spent 2 years removing everything that was not David. He worked carefully around the damage. He pushed through the fear of one wrong cut destroying everything. He managed powerful people with patience and wisdom. He protected his vision. And he gave the world something that still takes people's breath away today. The stone was broken. It did not matter. Because the right person finally came along. And he could see what was already inside. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and subscribe.